Hi everybody. As we have introduced before in the previous video that we shall be learning things about uh, information literacy, and today I'm going to take you through uh, one of the most important things in information literacy, that is having the sources of information. Okay, yes. So today we're going to learn about information source. So what are these sources of information? That's what we are going to learn. And my name is Amos. I welcome you, and let's start our video. So the first thing we're going to learn here is we need to define an information source. What is an information source? Okay. So if we do not know the meaning of an information source, then meaning we do not know what we are talking about. So we say information sources are any materials, records, or documents that provide data or knowledge on a particular subject. This can be in form of books, it can be in form of oral literature, it can be in form of anything. Anything where you get information from is a source of information. So that's briefly what we're supposed to know about information source. Okay, yeah. So now, what are these types of information sources? We have three main types of information sources. We have the primary source, we have the secondary source, then we also have the tertiary source of information. So we're going to look at them one after the other so that we know what they are all about. What is the primary source of information? That's one thing we have to know. So we're going to start with the primary source. What is this primary source of information? That's the first thing we have to ask ourselves. So a primary source of information is a direct or first-hand piece of evidence created at the time of the event or by someone who directly experienced the event or phenomenon. It has not been altered or interpreted by others and stands as an unmediated piece of information. So that is what a primary source is, meaning it's a first-hand information. No one has tampered with it. So if you get an information from a primary source, meaning you've gotten a first-hand information. So what are the characteristics of these primary sources of information? So first thing we have to know is that this information are original. So these sources are the first to provide information about a particular event or subject. They are not altered. They give us direct records that of our original source or raw data. You see, when you get an information from its source, that's a primary source. So what the originality, the information has to be original, not tampered with. You know, that's what we mean by the primary source of information. So the other thing is they give us a raw data meaning the information which has not been filtered. You can get you can look at something, how it appears. That is a primary that's a raw data. But now when you go into the details of it, that's now when you will discover other things later. But when you see it in an unfiltered way, that means it's a primary source of information. That's one thing also you have to know about the characteristics of primary sources of information. Then they have unmediated evidence. There is no interpretation or analysis from another person. The source itself is the evidence. So meaning if you see something, what you see is the evidence. Like in most cases, let me give you as an example. In the court, we have eyewitnesses. Someone who comes and say, "I saw you stealing." See, meaning that that is the person has seen you the way you were doing the thing. He has not been told by someone. So you become the primary source of information because that person has seen you without being analyzed. You, the source is the evidence. That's one thing also you have to get about the primary source. So another characteristic is that it is time related. They are closely tied to the moment in which they were created, making them especially valuable for understanding historical, cultural, or social contexts. So they appear uh, in that way at that particular time. Like if you find a footprint on a rock, that is how it has appeared at that particular moment. So what information do you get, and whose footprint is that? You see that? So that is it is related. But now with time, as time goes on, like you find when other processes take place, you find that the footprint begins to disappear. Hmm? The footprint begins to disappear. So meaning, when someone comes and says this, meaning this thing has occurred some time, some years back. See that? That's how it is time related. So those are briefly some of the characteristics of primary sources of information. So let's go to the next item, which is uh, the purpose. Or first is the examples of the primary source. We have to first get the examples of the primary sources. So what are they? So we shall see that one is documents. We find that documents written by some people will be a primary source of information for you who is referring to it. So you find that someone can be doing some experiment and tries to write the procedures he uses. So for you who wants to use it later, you will come and you give reference to that information and you begin also doing your findings from there. So that document becomes the primary source of information. Then we have creative works. So these creative works like poems. Someone creates his own her poem and puts it down or comes and tells you, then that person becomes the primary source of that poem. So if you also want to tell that poem to another person, you see you have heard it from the primary source, the author of that poem. So that person becomes the primary source of that poem. So the other thing is oral histories and interviews. You find that in our cultural setting, there are elders who tells us stories of how they used to live. See someone who has experienced something, or you were not there when that person was experiencing it. So the person tells you the histories orally, then you ask questions to that person so that you can understand. So that person who is telling you that story becomes uh, becomes the source of the information. So we have also scientific data. So you see the scientists, the data they collect, where they get it from, they become the primary the primary sources. So scientific data, like now when I want to, like when I go to some place and I start looking around, then I tell you, hey, there's this stone that looks like this. What makes this stone looks like this? So the data I get from there becomes the data that I get from there becomes the primary source. The stone that I see there becomes the primary source. So when I carry out other experiments on that stone, meaning now I'm doing I'm now getting information from the primary source, which was the stone. So briefly, those are the examples of the primary sources of information. So let's look at something here: the purpose. Why should information primary sources of information be there? The purpose of it. What is their importance? So we see there there here we have raw evidence. See, they provide for us raw evidence, the first hand information. That's what they give for us, meaning information which has not been diluted, or information which has not been like experienced by somebody before. You get it from the primary source. So they also lay the research foundation. Find that for us to be able to get some information, like you want to get details of something, you first need to get a primary source. Where do I start from? So the primary sources lay a foundation for us to do our research. You get the primary source, like we were talking about the footprints. Like you wanted to get the sizes of animals that have stayed here some time back. So you come and get the footprint. You see what could be the size of this animal. You see, that's how you start. So they lay a foundation. So they also the insight into context. Now this one is directly telling us that what you have seen is related to what was there. You see that what you have seen is related to what was there. So like now we were talking about stones, like the different types of stones. So meaning if you find this type of stone somewhere lying around, meaning it was there. If you find a small piece, meaning the bigger piece was there. You see that? So they are insight into context. So direct connection. Also, they have direct connection to the origin of something. They have connection. So a source, meaning if you find something about something, like let me say, you have seen a river flowing. You know that now this river has come from somewhere. So now that becomes a primary source. So now you begin to follow. You see the direction where it is following, it is flowing. Then you go backwards, meaning you will be able to find the source of this river. So that is one thing the primary source also gives us. Now, in conclusion, we shall see that primary sources are very essential. Okay, they are very essential for obtaining direct and mediated evidence from the time period or phenomenon being studied. They provide the foundational data or accounts needed to form new insights, theories, or conclusion. Meaning you cannot take a step to do a research. You cannot take a step to do to get evidence from something without getting a primary source. That's why they are very important in our daily lives. So that one also tells us more about now information literacy. We need to know information. So for you to start following up, for you to be able to get information, where do you start from? So meaning the first thing you have to get is the primary source of that information. So if you get the primary source of that information, meaning you'll be able to start noting down the information. So you start becoming an information literate. So that's one thing you have to know, and this is one of the things that we're going to cover in our videos here that I'm going to show you. So thank you for watching to this video. I guess you've learned something out of it. So if you find this video helpful, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for watching. I still remain Amos. Catch up next in the next video where we shall be learning about the secondary sources. This has been the primary source.